We're asked to plot the given angles in standard position and write an expression describing all the angles that are coterminal with the given angle. We're asked to use the variable k in the answer where k is any integer. First we have 5 pi divided by 4 radians, or 5/4 pi radians. In standard position, the initial side is along the positive x-axis. Because the angle is positive 5/4 pi radians, we now rotate counterclockwise 5/4 pi radians. Well, half a rotation counterclockwise is pi radians. So if we divide half a rotation into 4 equal parts, each part will represent 1/4 pi radians. And we can use this to plot 5/4 pi radians. So cutting half a rotation into 4 equal parts, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Continuing, in the third and fourth quadrant, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. And now we can rotate counterclockwise 5/4 pi radians. We have 1/4 pi, 2/4 pi, 3/4 pi, 4/4 pi, and 5/4 pi. This is the terminal side of 5/4 pi radians. Any angle that is coterminal to this angle will have the same initial side and same terminal side. For example, the next positive coterminal angle to 5/4 pi radians would be the angle where we rotate 1 full rotation counterclockwise and then continue rotating until we reach the same terminal side as 5/4 pi radians. And we can find this angle by adding 2 pi to 5/4 pi radians. If we wanted to find a negative coterminal angle, we would rotate clockwise from the initial side to the terminal side of 5/4 pi radians, which would be here. To find this angle, we would subtract 2 pi from 5/4 pi radians. This indicates the expression for all the coterminal angles to 5/4 pi radians would be 5 pi divided by 4 plus 2 pi k, meaning to find the coterminal angles, we add and subtract multiples of 2 pi to 5/4 pi radians. And the units here would be radians. Let's use decimals to show 20 coterminal angles to 5/4 pi radians. It's a little bit trickier when dealing with radians. If we try to enter 5 pi divided by 4, right arrow, plus 2 pi times k, and then click Add Slider. We need to change the slider for k so the step is 1, since k is an integer. If we click in cell 2, change the step to 1. Close the keypad, click outside cell 2. And notice now when we change the slider, we are getting angles that are coterminal to 5 pi divided by 4 radians. However, we're only getting decimal approximations. And we always want to give exact values whenever possible. So what we can do here is change k back to 0. And we'll remove the pi to perform the calculation, and then just remember to include the pi when giving the coterminal angle. So if we remove the pi here and here, and then click on the Convert to Fraction button on the far left, we're adding multiples of 2 to 5/4, and then we just have to include the pi to get the coterminal angle. So notice when k is equal to 1, this represents the coterminal angle of 13/4 pi. Next we have 21/4 pi, and so on. So we can't include the pi in the calculation if we want the exact value of the coterminal angle. We have to do it this way, then include the pi in the final answer. And when k is negative, we can find negative coterminal angles. Again, just by including the pi on the fraction. For the second example, we have negative 5 pi divided by 6 radians, or negative 5/6 pi radians. The initial side is along the positive x-axis. Because the angle is negative 5/6 pi radians, we need to rotate clockwise 5/6 pi radians. Half a rotation clockwise is negative pi radians. So if we divide half a rotation into 6 equal parts, each part represents negative 1/6 pi radians. So we'll cut this in half, and then each half into 3 equal parts. And now we can rotate clockwise 5/6 pi radians for negative 6 pi radians. We have negative 1/6 pi, negative 2/6 pi, negative 3/6 pi, negative 4/6 pi, and negative 5/6 pi. This is the terminal side for negative 5/6 pi radians. The next negative coterminal angle to negative 5/6 pi radians would be found by rotating clockwise one complete rotation and then continuing to rotate all the way back to the terminal side of negative 5/6 pi radians. For the least positive coterminal angle, we would start along the positive x-axis and rotate counterclockwise to the terminal side of negative 5/6 pi radians. And we can find this angle by adding 2 pi radians to negative 5/6 pi radians. The expression for all the angles that are coterminal to negative 5/6 pi radians is negative 5 pi divided by 6 plus 2 pi k, where again the units here, of course, are radians. And again, let's use Desmos to show 20 coterminal angles to negative 5/6 pi radians. So once again, we're not going to include the pi. We will just enter negative 5/6 plus 2k. And then click on the Convert to Fraction button. And then we have to remember to include the pi when expressing the coterminal angles. So notice when k is equal to 0, we have negative 5/6, which represents the initial angle of negative 5/6 pi. And as we move k to the right, we have a bunch of positive coterminal angles to negative 5/6 pi radians, as long as we include a pi on the fraction. And when k is negative, we have a bunch of negative coterminal angles to the given angle. Again, as long as we include the pi when expressing the angle. I hope you found this helpful.